Now, our starting point tonight is analysis of the two stories that have dominated the headlines here in Nigeria in the past few days and that we've covered extensively. The crisis in Rivers State and the Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan versus Godswill Akpabio saga. First, though, to Rivers State and the political crisis that's been festering there for months now between Governor Sim Fubara and Minister Nyesom Wike, with the leadership in the state split between the executive and the legislature, and with the people staring apprehensively at a conflict that could have a major socio-economic dimension, which may well threaten the whole edifice of the region. Is Rivers State now effectively in uncharted waters? Well, for her assessment, I'm suitably delighted to say that I'm joined now in the studio by the international multimedia journalist and former BBC correspondent Donu Kogbara, who currently has a column in Vanguard newspaper, is the star of a YouTube channel called Donu's World. You don't like me going through all this, but I will. Presents a podcast called Africa Here and Now, and a very good podcast at that, and writes for the Europe-based magazine Africa Report. Great to see you again.
Hello, Charles.
Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, and I'm very glad that you got here just in the nick of time, as you always do, always on time. But let's start with Rivers State, because that is, of course, your home state, and therefore you feel a certain affinity with, the state and so on. As you watch this crisis continue to unfold, what do you make of it all at this stage?
I think that my former governor, Nyesom Wike, the current minister for the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, I think he's playing with fire, and I think I blame the president for not curbing his excesses. Wike has got, in his view, perfectly legitimate grounds to quarrel with the current governor, Sim Fubara. And I know Wike much, much better. In fact, I don't know Fubara at all. I've only met him once briefly. Wike and I go back years, and he's been nice to me from time to time. So I want to make it very clear that this is not against him per se, it's against his behavior. I'm siding with Rivers State. You know, whoever launches assault against a state that is, limping along rather feebly, I am going to take up against that person, you know. But it's that Wike is playing with fire. His attacks on the Ijaw nation are unwise. Not because the Ijaw nation is always right, of course it isn't. But it's completely unnecessary at this point in time. Sim Fubara is an Ijaw person. All his people are outraged about the comments Wike has made about their ethnic group. And I think if Rivers catches fire, it's probably going to sort of have a domino effect throughout the Niger Delta. And nobody is fooled. The President Tinubu this week received some Niger Delta elders in the presidential villa, and was, dishing out benign advice in a rather sort of magisterial Olympian way, advising them to talk to the governor, saying the governor should respect the rule of law, listen to the judiciary, which, by the way, the Supreme Court had, as we know, humiliated him the week before. And I just think, who are you kidding? Give me a break, Mr. President, you know? If your side of this issue, because it's clear that he's on Wike's side, and that his attempts to offer advice to Fubara are just tokenism. It's just gaslighting nonsense. Give us a break. Play your role. You're supposed to be the leader. You're supposed to be the daddy of the nation. I mean, you're old enough, for God's sake. In fact, probably grandfather of the nation. Why don't you stop all this unnecessary wahala? Wike is a very impetuous person. He's pugnacious. He's volatile. I know him really well. And, on a good day, he's a nice person, honestly. But once he
Is it
gets
a rare good day?
and once he gets to be in his bonnet, like this, his fixation with Kogbara, whom he feels betrayed by, he's going to carry on like this till somebody says stop. He's like a moving train, okay? And the only person who can do that is the president. I say this, even if Wike was my husband or my same mother, same father, sibling, I would tell him what I'm saying now. Stop.
Yesterday, of course, hugely eventful in Rivers State. Today, slightly less fraught, but the intrigues continue not far below the surface. What do you make of the resumption of hostilities? Because it sort of goes off, and as we used to kid around in those days, I'll see you tomorrow, we'll resume hostilities tomorrow. But they kind of resumed hostilities in the last few days, and it kind of came to a head yesterday. What do you think of that very public resumption of hostilities?
When the governor went to address the 27 lawmakers and was locked out. Well, I mean, that was just completely out of order. It's rude. It's probably illegal, but it's just unnecessary. And these are 27 people who clearly, they left PDP. They were received publicly into APC. And now because of, a dicey judiciary and all kinds of strange Niger shenanigans, we're now being told that they didn't leave, okay? And then they can do what they want. How dare they?
It's a bit like the emperor's new clothes, isn't it? I mean, everybody knows the emperor's starkers.
The starkers.
But, I mean, people are saying, well, what a jolly nice gown you've got on.
And again, I know some of those legislators, like Martins, the speaker, and, got nothing against them personally. In fact, I've always had pleasant interactions with them. But Martins, I tell you, stop. You're behaving really badly. And very few people in this country are going to say, you're an asshole, you're behaving like an asshole. I am telling you, stop. Because I know what people tell me. And I know what the majority of people in Rivers State and outside Rivers State think. Because the people around Wike, they're living in a sort of echo chamber. They all gather around him, drinking, singing, on your mandate we shall stand, and all their other nice little anthems that, they sing when they're together. And they hear each other, but they don't hear the outside world.
And you mentioned at the outset that you stood with Rivers State.
Yes, I stand with Rivers.
How do you analyze the impact of this crisis on the ordinary people in the state?
It's absolutely devastating. I talk to people of all levels. I talk to staff in hotels. I talk to taxi drivers. I talk to market women. I talk to people in my village. And of course, Wike has supporters at all levels, but the majority of Rivers people are fed up. They are dejected. They want all this aggression to end.
And of course, potentially, they're not getting the FARC allocations, the money that is supposed to accrue to them from the federal government. And if it continues, it could really worsen the economic situation, couldn't it?
That's another very critical point. One of the reasons I intervened by making one or two podcasts and writing one or two articles is because I'm really concerned about the economic situation in Rivers State. Now, you have three main cities in this country, which is Port Harcourt, Abuja, and Rivers. Now, Port Harcourt, Abuja, and Lagos, should Port Harcourt not be some kind of shining city on a hill? I mean, that's where the oil comes from. I mean, Rivers is the capital of the oil industry, right? Yet it's sort of staggering along painfully. Its economy is shot to pieces. It used to be, I have a friend who owns a housing estate. It used to be full of people coming in from outside to do business in Rivers State, mostly oil business. Now the place is deserted because people stay in Lagos, fly into, including expatriates, fly into Port Harcourt Rivers State just to do their work and fly out again. So they're not contributing to the local economy in terms of, the social impact, the economic impact. And I just feel as if Rivers State is treated like a cow that should be milked and not loved.
Right. You mean River State.
Yes, I'm so sorry if I said that. Yeah. So we're just being used, abused. The money that Tinubu and his people are enjoying so thoroughly, it comes from us and our neighbors, our brethren in the Niger Delta. I want some respect. I want some care. I mean, if we're going to be milked so that Nigeria can survive financially, for God's sake, treat us like human beings. And do not toy with us just because one person is upset with his successor. Because that's what all this is about. Wike is upset with Fubara, and maybe for good reason. To be honest with you, I don't know Fubara. I don't know what he did to upset Wike this much. Okay? Because I'll say something that will surprise a lot of people. I don't know Wike to be a particularly vindictive person. I have crossed him several times. I mean, during 2023, after the election, did I or did I not come onto this program and accuse him of rigging the election in River State? But he forgave me. We carried on being the best of friends after a few little, sulking sessions and verbal exchanges. When my mother died, I didn't ask him for anything. He gave me money, just to contribute to the burial cost. So, Fubara must have done something that just really, he can't forget it. He can't forgive it. And I suggest that a real friend will tell him, sorry, matey, sometimes for the greater good, you have to let certain things go. It is too self-centered to drag a whole state.
You mean say to Wike?
Yes.
Yeah.
He should stop it. Even if Fubara has cut him to the quick. Someone even told me that Fubara made Wike cry one day. He was so disrespectful towards him shortly after he took over from him. I don't know if it's true. Even if it is, it's not just about you. You cannot drag a whole state into crisis because you have a problem with one person.
Indeed. And I mean, you talk about the fact that, as President Tinubu referred to it, River State is the goose that lays the golden egg.
Yes.
And the rest of Nigeria is sort of, living off it. How do you gauge this growing national apprehension about what is going on in River State? Somebody said it is a bit like a political atomic bomb for many Nigerians looking in from the outside in. And you yourself, of course, live in Abuja, where you perhaps are able to feel that pulse.
There's a Chinese saying, beware of what you want because you might get it. Okay? So when Wike talks belligerently and bellicose, talk about we will fight in the trenches, we will beat him, we will do this, we will do that. Be careful, because if war starts, you might be surprised that you don't win the war. And even if you do, we're looking at a scorched earth policy. And you are so unpopular. Wike is so unpopular in River State. A lot of people don't have the courage to say so publicly, but you'll be amazed how many people are furious with him, bitter with him. I even have to defend him sometimes. I say, he's not that bad. I know him, you know what I mean? But he is behaving so badly that he's beyond defending at this stage. And I think that, someone said to me, one of my cousins sent me a message today saying, why do you like trouble? Leave these people. The man is 100% backed by the president. They're playing a very dirty game. We are just, there's nothing, we're powerless in the face of their evil machinations. That is Tinubu and Wike. Why don't you let it go? After all, these people. You can even get a land allocation from Wike, $1 billion contract from. Why? The reason is I have always hated bullies. When I was at school, I was the type of girl who wouldn't let anybody bully the weak children or the younger children. I don't like gaslighting. I don't like intellectual dishonesty. I don't like being patronized. And when Tinubu stands up and says, well, kind of trying to give Sim advice about how to manage the situation, I just think, excuse me, who do you think you are? Yeah, you're the president, but we're not all idiots, okay? So please, do the right thing. A leader is supposed to be cohesive. You know what?
Yeah.
To add insult to injury, most Rivers people do not believe that Tinubu won Rivers State in 2023. So if I were him, knowing very well that he probably did not win Rivers State, try and win hearts and minds. Don't, talk rubbish and be lecturing the Sim. I don't know if Sim is a nice person or not a nice person. I don't know him.
Right. Well, let's move on from that, because I was going to ask you, really the bottom line in all of this is winning. I mean, that's the way these people see it. Who wins? It doesn't really matter what public opinion is. Public opinion has always gone south from them. I mean, and it's been that way from a long time. I mean, it doesn't matter who it is, away from most politicians. But bearing in mind the latest inflection point from the Supreme Court, which is what has brought us to where we are at the moment in Rivers State, who do you reckon has got the upper hand in that crisis now, Wike or Fubara?
Well, Wike and Tinubu, I'm going to start coupling them. Because while Tinubu is trying to pretend that he's on in some lofty position, while Wike, they are together. I would say Wike and Tinubu are winning at the moment.
Right.
In terms of might is not right, but might holds sway. Okay, sometimes. But I say that they have lost the battle of public opinion. A lot of people from the ethnic group I belong to, that is the Ogoni group, are supporting Wike because they think that he will give them the governorship if Fubara is tossed out. Impeached. I think that if I were Wike, Tinubu, and their supporters, I would tread carefully. Nigerians are not known for massive rebelliousness, but they're very unpopular. So I think, yes, to be honest with you, they are winning right now. Sim looks a bit weak. If I were Sim, I would probably adopt a different strategy. I'd probably use different words, but we're all different people.
Right. So in the current circumstances, so that we can move on to the next topic, what would be the basis for a settlement? Will it be legal or political?
Well, Wike has said that if Sim wants peace, he must, he's given some preconditions. But I don't think Sim can fulfill. I don't think anything Sim does is going to lead to forgiveness from Wike. The president has said that if we want peace, if Sim wants peace, he should follow the rule of law and listen to, dubious judicial decisions. Oh, Charles, I so miss the days when people like your father were the top judges in this country. We never had any whiff of bribery, corruption. There was no manipulation, malfeasance. People like your father and Justice P.K. Mokedi. What's gone wrong in this country? It's just awful.
Well, I'll leave it at that question mark hanging, because we've got to move on to the next topic. That's our second topic of the first half of Prime Time tonight, the emotive issue of sexual harassment in Nigeria. You probably already know that the allegations by Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan against the Senate President Godswill Akpabio have drawn international attention and lots of noise across the country. The Senate has been forced to send envoys to the UN, both to try to explain the Senate's position, but also to buttress support for itself after the way it's been bruised by Senator Uduaghan's global campaign. And the international multimedia journalist, Donu Kogbara, is still with me in the studio. Thank you for staying with us. Where do you stand on the story of Senator Uduaghan? Do you think the system in the Senate has failed her, or as some in the Senate suggest, she's the one who's failed the system in the Senate?
Well, I think the Senate has failed itself, in the sense that the Senate is definitely receiving more criticism than she is overall. I mean, I monitor the news, I monitor public opinion, and Senator Natasha is definitely has more support as far as I can see. But you see, National Assembly was already unpopular. They're already regarded as a bunch of thieving, greedy rogues anyway, so they've made things worse for themselves. I mean, I'm not saying every senator is a bad guy. And I actually, let's just say that I know Akpabio and I know his good side, okay? But this matter has been handled really, really badly. I have not commented on Natasha's sexual harassment allegations. First of all, the whole thing about where she was sitting or not sitting, I thought that was rubbish. I couldn't be bothered. When the quarrel started, I just thought, oh, for God's sake, I'm busy. I haven't got time for this nonsense. But then it moved on to sexual harassment. And I thought, uh-oh, you know?
That got your goats, did it?
Well, two things I would say about it is, look, most Nigerian men in positions of power, including brigads at gates, are sexual harassers by nature. I'm sorry.
They're predatorial.
They're predatorial around women. It's not even funny. You know, at each level, they harass women. A brigade might harass a woman who wants to come and sell puff-puff in the ministry building. A minister or a senator or whoever or governor will trade favors for and help for sex. So that has been the story of my life, and I think most Nigerian women would agree that it's very commonplace.
Well, in the last couple of minutes that we've got, and it's a pity we're running out of time because it's brilliant always talking with you, but I mean, the fact that you mentioned how prevalent this is, I wonder how deep you think the impact of this case will be on that culture that prevails in this country when it comes to sexual harassment of women.
Well, people seem to be more aware of it, more outraged by it. I mean, when I was younger and I used to complain about it, I got very little sympathy. It was like, well, you know, kind of just, that's just how that's the way they are, the men here. It wasn't, the men in the UK were not like this. That's where I grew up and spent the first half of my adulthood. I think there's less tolerance for it now. But there's something that really interests me is why the senior women in the Senate do not seem to be supporting Natasha. I have tried to reach one of them who is a friend of mine, and she hasn't answered me. It's like, why are you not supporting her? Is there something we don't know? You know? But I guess that there's never any excuse for the type of thing that happened, the suspension. It was like a kangaroo court, wasn't it? You know? And I don't know what to say. I don't think that every woman who jumps up and accuses every man should be believed. But it's very difficult to prove who is. I think some women.
But at the same time, they're entitled to have their allegations properly
investigated.
Yeah, investigated.
Yes,
okay.
I totally agree. And what I was going to say is that on this, going back to this matter, which is very, very close to my heart, is on River State. You know, let me just say something I've never
briefly,
said.
because we're
literally
1 minute.
Something I've never said before. I think it was 2018 or 2019 when Tinubu lost one of his children, I think possibly his oldest son, I think his name was Jide. I was in London with Wike, and Wike wanted to condole Tinubu. I don't know if that was the first time he'd ever met him, but he asked me if he felt that I might be able to help, and he said, how do I reach Tinubu? I hear he's in London. I want to condole him. And I reached Tinubu through a friend of mine who works for Tinubu at that time. And we went to see Tinubu together. Like I said, I don't know if that was the first or second time. But we went to go and see Tinubu together with one or two other senior Rivers people. And Tinubu was very, very pleasant and welcoming. And they definitely were not close then, but they're close now.
How long ago was that?
I think it was 2018, 2019, around then.
Right.
Right? It was the week that Wike appeared at Chatham House. And I'd just like to appeal to Tinubu. You know, I had quite a high regard for you then, but a lot of, you know, bad stories have been leaked about him since, and, you know, we know the stories about his life in America and all that. But, you know, anybody can turn their reputation around, and I would like Tinubu to be the man he could be.
Okay. On that note, I want to say thank you very much indeed. It's great to see you again and to have the benefit of your rather very interesting analysis. Donu Kogbara is an international multimedia journalist. She has a column with Vanguard newspaper. She was a former BBC correspondent. She's a star of a YouTube channel called Donu's World, and she co-presents a podcast called Africa Here and Now, and is As if that's not enough, she writes for the Europe-based magazine Africa Report. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Charles.